Welcome. You're listening to the podcast of Willow Creek Church in Winter Springs, Florida. Recording this for our tens of listeners. The red thing's going, Drew, and on the computer, so I think we're recording right now. And we were just talking about you listen to this at 1.5 speed.
I do, yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
I'm a 1.5 speed listener of podcasts.
That's something.
It keeps me up, honestly, especially when I hear my own voice.
So when you listen to us, we sounded like the Chipmunks, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's good.
And I was saying, we're from the South. You're from North Carolina. I'm from Florida. We sort of have just a drawl. Our speech is just a little bit slower by nature. So 1.5, it's not even at the rate of a normal New Yorker.
Hey, welcome everybody. We've begun by insulting all Southerners that we speak slowly. That's great. That's good stuff.
We make fun of our own. That's right. Well, this is cool. We're on the couch.
We're back.
We're back. Yeah, and Ryan, our editor-in-chief, chief audio engineer, has actually given us the windscreen. Do you have a windscreen?
I've got some kind of little thing over this because I popped a pee apparently last time, which I probably just did right there.
Well, when we get excited, listeners, we like to, sometimes we're just animated and spit just flies out of our mouths. And so
last week you started off in the bathroom and now we're just spitting around up here. So let's get this thing going because this is definitely what our tens of listeners have tuned in for. Ryan, I asked you yesterday, how many listens did we have on this last week? 80-something.
Wow.
That's awesome. Huge shout out. Thanks to all those who listened.
Yeah, your checks are coming in the mail. It'll take a few weeks to get there.
And we weren't just local. We were international.
No way.
We had some listens.
All right.
Overseas, which is kind of fun. Cool. So shout out to all of you over the pond, wherever that might be, that are tuning in to episode 2.
I think one of the highlights from last episode was I had a couple of comments about the fact that we addressed, kind of broke the fourth wall and addressed people on where they might be listening to their podcast.
Yeah.
I think your daughter even said, how did you know?
How did you know I was on the treadmill? How did you know I was mowing the grass? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's what people do when they listen to podcasts.
That's right.
So,
and somebody even said, hey, how did you, or I think they said they laughed at when I mentioned the comment about if you're taking a nap, enjoy the rest of it. They're like, yeah, that's probably pretty accurate for how I consume.
I think they're going to be taking a nap just about now in our podcast here.
Oh, man. Well, Greg, it's good to be back doing this with you.
Sir.
This is episode 2 of what we hope to be just a regular occurrence on the What's Up. That's the wrong podcast.
Hey, get rid of that, Ryan.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, Drew's dropping plugs for his other podcast.
Yes,
wow.
I do have some familiarity with podcasts, but this is the Willow Creek podcast.
Yeah, that's where we're at
for all things Willow Creek. And so where can we find episode 1, Ryan? You don't have a microphone.
Ryan doesn't have a microphone. Hey, we're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast and Amazon YouTube.
And YouTube.
YouTube.
Yes.
Amazon Music and YouTube.
Perfect. Just search Willow Creek.
Search Willow Creek Church and you'll find our logo.
That's right. And hopefully we'll do some more of these, on a periodic basis. We're going to be touching on sort of more questions and big picture ideas of Vision 2050. But if you have topics, if you have special guests within Willow Creek Church, if you have questions, if you have jokes at Greg or I's expense, let us know. Reach out and interact with us. Maybe we'll bring them on the podcast. Probably not. Because we are also,
I bruise like a peach, man.
But yeah, this will be fun today. We had a chance to meet before staff, talked about a couple little things. Really, the goal is not to have this be a super organized show. We really want this to be.
We've nailed that. Yeah.
Despite my best efforts to rein us in, you are determined to keep us off the beaten path and just going for a frolic down the lane wherever the wind takes us. But yeah, excited to kind of talk a little bit more? I don't know about you. I know I've had some conversations with more of our members just about Vision 2050 as a whole, following up on some specifics, and so maybe we'll get a little bit into that. What would you kind of, as a starting point, just sort of, if people are listening and like you've said Vision 2050 3 times, what is that? What do you
Sure.
mean?
Yeah. Vision 2050. It's kind of us looking forward the next 25 years of where could we see. It's a vision. It's what do we long to see Willow Creek, Lord willing, look like 25 years from now. What kind of a legacy? And I know that's one of the things that we've talked about is what kind of a legacy will we leave for the next generation? Whether the next generation be all of the kids that are part of Willow Creek Church right now, where we have almost 100 kids leave for children's worship. What kind of legacy are we leaving for them in the future? Or it could be a next generation of adults who come to faith when in their 20s, 30s, 40s that aren't yet a part of this church or maybe other churches in our area, but the Lord is working in them. And so what is that next generation of people who will be transformed by the gospel? And so that really is at the heart of what Vision 2050 is about, of seeing the gospel move in us, work in us. That's one of the things that's kind of hit me about the book of Jonah as we've studied it, that it kind of wasn't on my radar before I started the series of just how much of the work is going on in Jonah's life. And how much of that, as we think about the future, as we look to the future of where God leads us as his people, is he's working on us just as much as he is working on those that don't yet know Jesus. And so really it's a both and. And so where we hope to see, we prayerfully see people coming to faith, growing in their faith, us growing in our faith, and leaving Willow Creek in a better place than we found it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that absolutely is our vision and our heart. You know, it's interesting. I believe you said this maybe in one of our elders' meetings or just one-on-one, but I love the thought, especially if a listener here is, maybe older, and we've had some jokes about, well, 2050, I'm not going to be here in 25 years. What does this mean for me, or why should I care? And one of the things that I believe you said that struck me was just to rewind the clock nearly 40 years ago, and to think that there were people in Maitland, Florida, just up the road at Orangewood Presbyterian 40 years ago that thought, hey, we'd like to see the gospel go forth into these burgeoning communities of Winter Springs and Oviedo and beyond.
Yeah.
And to think now, all these years later in 2024, Willow Creek Church would not be here. We would not be here without those that had a heart and a vision to see a legacy laid forth. In fact, I'm just putting it out there now into the ether. I think we ought to try to identify and find somebody besides Sam Martirana, but he'd be another great one to add, but just somebody that was there at Orangewood to kind of talk about the vision behind their original dream to see the churches.
And that was, Greg and Leslie Nelson's video that you can find on our Facebook page. It might be on YouTube. It's on YouTube. I'm getting the head nod from our audio guy. And thankfully, like you mentioned, just kind of the looking back and thinking about like, well, I'm not going to be here in 25 years. That was just like a thought that occurs in my head. Thankfully, I haven't heard anyone say that. Yeah. That's the awesome thing, or one of the many awesome things about as we've kind of moved forward in this is nobody's like, well, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Like I want to. There's actually the opposite. I do care. Like I want to see that not just for my grandkids or my children, but for the next generation. For the sake of this community that I'm a part of, that whether I've lived here my whole life or just moved here, this community that God has put us in and that we love. Yeah. And so that's kind of at the heart of it. So it's been, it's good.
What I've been thinking more and more about, because we were talking about not just only focusing Vision 2050 on children and raising up disciples and followers of Jesus that are kids. We certainly do that and desire to do that with excellence here in the church, but also thinking about just others, and particularly adults that don't know Jesus, and having eyes to see. One of my absolute favorite, and I would say formative texts is in Jeremiah, when it talks about the people during exile, the people of God, removed from their homeland, living in a pagan nation, a foreign nation, and God says to A, not fear, but B, to engage in the city, to build homes, to marry, to work, to plant gardens.
Seek its good, because in its good you will find your good.
That's right. Yeah. And so I feel like a lot of what Vision 2050 is kind of shaping us towards is to have eyes to see those that are in our midst. And really what we've noted, even in the really recent history of life, is ever since COVID, ever since some just cultural matters and political divisiveness and these hot button topics, right, that we're all very keen to, very aware of. It's like the constant kind of chatter conversation. What we note is that there are people that are searching for peace. There are people that are searching for answers, and we know we have answers. We have the hope that's found in the gospel of Jesus. And so that to me is really exciting, that folks are coming to use our preschool, for example, as a means of like, okay, I know my kids are going to be cared for well here. We see that with the explosion of the private Christian schools in and around our community, but also the desire to be a part of a faith community. And so that's exciting, just to have eyes to see, to continue to make those connections with the burgeoning neighborhoods of young families in particular, many whom don't know the Lord, but are looking for some sort of clarity and peace in the times we find ourselves in. But
awesome.
Well, so we talked a little bit about legacy. I want to take the minutes we have and just focus both locally and then much more broadly in terms of the vision. I picture in the going to the eye doctor appointment, right? You got the machine that like hones in.
Which is better, one or two?
Exactly.
One or two.
This won't be like a puff of air. That's everyone's nightmare. I know. Oh man, I still have nightmares about that. But no, as far as the thinking about just locally mission, right? Like what, in regards to Vision 2050, how is our local mission? How is this emphasis on outreach? We can obviously talk about what that might look like and different things, what we're doing currently and what we're dreaming about, doing in terms of deepening our how we do outreach and where we're reaching out to. But how is that biblical in terms of because we'll get to every tongue, tribe, and nation need to hear about Jesus, but why is it significant that we focus on where we live?
It's where Jesus tells the disciples, go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth. And those actually form like concentric rings that are kind of moving out. He doesn't call all of us to go to another country. He does call some, but he doesn't call everyone. But he really, even kind of back to the Jeremiah, he calls us to certain places to be a light for the gospel in those places in which we live, in which we work, in which we play, and all of those things. And so that's why, in a sense, we ought to think of it as like, that's why God has put us here. He's put us right here in this community at this time for a purpose, for a reason, to proclaim the good news of the gospel, to seek the good of Winter Springs and Castleberry and Oviedo in our area. And so we're going to look at this week. So I don't want to give too much away in the sermon this week, but it's, for Jonah, that was like as he goes to Nineveh, it was a call for hope for the folks. 40 more days and Nineveh will be destroyed. Jonah wasn't saying that to threaten them. It was actually a call of hope, which is just kind of mind-boggling. I'm still wrestling with that. And so what do we have to offer? We have hope. And he says, go as you're going about your daily business. That's the beauty of Matthew 28. When Jesus says go, it can be translated a couple of ways. I've said this before in the services. It can mean as you're going, as you go to your kids' games, as you go play pickleball, as you go to the store, as you just go about life. Tell others about Jesus. And or it can mean go, meaning go from where you are because you've got this burden to reach the people somewhere else that don't have a church, that don't have anyone to tell them about Jesus. And so, I was just thinking about this earlier of just how do you leverage, I don't like that word, but how do you use, take the stuff that goes on in our communities, in our culture to help people come to know Jesus. Halloween's coming up. I think you mentioned this last year, actually. Halloween's coming up, and I get it. If it's not part of, this is about your conscience as well. So I'll just say that at the get-go. But throw the best Halloween.
Yes.
For the kids, be the house that all the kids are like, I want to go there, because they give out like the 4-foot Snickers bars. Like they went to Buc-ee's and got the most ginormous Texas-sized candy bar I've ever seen, and that was just that's where I want to go. So that you're a blessing. That's a small way,
right?
But it's a step. It's a step in getting to know your neighbors. Invite them over to your house and say, hey, we're just going to throw on some burgers on the grill. Invite them over. And one, don't clean your house. Let them know that your life is a mess. And two, don't put your Christian books away. Let them see Bibles sitting on the counter. Let them see Willow Creek Vision 2050, all of your paraphernalia laying on, I don't know. But and then see, as people see those things, let them ask questions. What's that about? Oh, you're one of those people. Believe the Bible. You don't like me. Prove them wrong. Right. Just welcome them. Have that. Just have the folks in your neighborhood over. Use Halloween as an opportunity to get to know people. Say hi to people that you really see the back of their car when they drive in their garage and their garage door shuts. You're like, oh, you're the guy that owns the Chrysler. Got it. Now I like, what's your name? Nice to meet you. I see you all the time down there. And hey, I'm so and so. And just use that as an opportunity, because it is, a lot of us. It's not going to be like Jonah, where we walk around the neighborhood and go, 40 days in the end of Tuscaloosa, and then everyone repents. Like, it probably not going to work that way. And so we just slowly, step by step, build relationships, share Jesus with people, and look for opportunities to be involved. And I'm so excited because there are folks in our church that are coming up to me and saying, hey, this Bible study is going great in my neighborhood. We've had, I don't remember the exact number of folks that I've invited everyone in my neighborhood, and we had 4 or 5 show up, and we've added 2 or 3 new people in the last month, and they're coming back and they want to know more about the Bible. We have people that are going, I'm in this neighborhood and we just want to be a huge blessing to it. And we're going to do this and do that. My kids are getting to know other kids in the neighborhood, or we intentionally go on a walk at the same time every night. So we see the same people out walking their dogs. And so we've just started up conversations with them, and we're getting to know them. And we go on a walk because it's good for our health. And we go when it's, midnight, when it's cool enough to walk outside. When it's down, the heat index is below 150. But we're just getting to know people, and we're doing that with intentionality. And that, to me, I love that. That gets me fired up. I love hearing folks' testimonies, and I've heard several over the last couple of weeks just saying, hey, I've got this Bible study. We're reaching out. Would you pray for it? And I'm like, Absolutely. Like that's part of the vision
Right.
of doing that here in our own community and being a blessing to it.
That's
and
really
with gospel intentionality, not just
exactly.
saying, "Oh, this is just a good thing. Let's just be neighborly."
Mhm.
And the folks in our neighborhood are not a project.
Right.
That they're people to be loved and to share Jesus with them. And God's going to do the work.
Right.
God's the one who's
Yeah.
changing their
that's
hearts,
part
not
of,
us.
That's part of vision is, like you said, it's not just how can we fix the issues that are out there.
Yeah.
When we're aligned with God's vision, like our eyes, our heart gets changed, right?
Right.
In that imagery of just we are transformed by the gospel. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I know that there are folks that, in fact, our small group met on Thursday, and we were talking about this. And one of our guys in our group is he's on our worship team, and he loves music, and he just has such a passion for the arts as a whole. And he was saying, Pastor Drew, what would it look like to just connect with local musicians in the area to play music together and use the common love for music to then springboard onto gospel conversations. I was like,
Right.
absolutely, like that's amazing. And
Awesome.
Willow Creek Church, we're equipped to totally do some of those
Yeah.
types of things. So yeah, the opportunities are endless. Really, it's a matter of and that's our hope behind this vision as a whole. It's not a fundraiser. It's not a raise a bunch of money.
Right.
It's ultimately about transforming and really shaping the focus of our hearts, our minds, our lives, that we might be generous. That you were saying something earlier, and the adage, Christians, we will be known by our love,
Yeah.
and that the money's raised, and then the money's and time and talent that goes out into the community will be exemplified that we are followers of Jesus, and we know we're loved, and we're going to go love our community.
Yeah,
community
absolutely.
radically. So,
Yeah.
yeah, exciting stuff ahead for sure, and love people talking to those that are going to listen to this, the members and friends of Willow Creek. Like, we have so many that love living here, love the people in our surrounding area, and just want to encourage you. It is biblical. It is God honoring to not just simply sit in the pew and gain information and knowledge about God, but to actually be the hands and feet of Jesus and how you pursue those in our community.
And none of these things, and these are just ideas. There's no one size. There's no like this is the way that it's going to happen. It can look different even in every neighborhood, and in different seasons of life it can look different. But it's what are we doing, like, intentionally? And it's, again, I've mentioned this last week, and I just want to reiterate this. This isn't about changing any program, getting rid of any program or anything at Willow Creek. This is just part of our daily rhythms of life that we just do. Go to the same places and shop, see the same people at the store, see the same people at the restaurants or whatever.
Say they know your order at Chick-fil-A. They know my order at breakfast.
So I can neither confirm nor deny that they know my order at Chick-fil-A, but they call me by name. So it's not about like, oh, we're gonna get rid of this or not do that at Willow Creek. No, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing because it's part of a healthy spiritual life and small groups and larger groups and Bible studies and all of the things that we do. So we're not getting rid of anything, but it's, as we're not in those things, what are we doing? And how do we use those to tell others about the gospel? So
by our final talking point really is I wanted to pick your brain and just give our people some insight into some of your experience, as well as conversations with those that are serving elsewhere across the pond and other places. It by God's grace, Willow Creek, we are you mentioned it last episode. We're in a healthy place in terms of people, in terms of unity, in terms of our staff and leadership, even where we are financially, all in all. And so it's easy to kind of look and think, well, like, no, everything's great here. Yeah, we would love to see more people know Jesus, but by and large, like, things are fine. You've had the unique privilege, unlike many of us listening, to actually live in and be I don't know what the word is, but indoctrinated by a different.
It's probably not the word, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah,
a different. You've lived in a different context
Mm-hmm.
than America, having served in Scotland with our denomination's mission partner, and while there, it's been fun to hear just some of the things you observed and some of the church planters there and current pastors in what's a very we would say is a very challenging environment where the gospel is not necessarily openly proclaimed and is not being received. And so what are some things that you noted about that time and what you're hearing, but also what are some potential like warnings that we or lessons that we ought to take as we think about our context here?
Yeah,
in Central
I
Florida?
think kind of where the United Kingdom and specifically the United Kingdom where we serve, but Europe in general, they would, whoever those people are that study these things would say like it's a post-Christian culture. We know Europe, all the cathedrals, height of Christianity, lots of great stuff happened in Europe and the gospel and Christianity in the past. But over the generations, particularly where we served in Scotland, the gospel has gotten smaller and smaller. There's
And that would
probably
primarily
lots
be
of
less identify, like they identify as a Christian.
correct,
Like,
yeah. Even like culturally, like if you go to the place like Sweden, many like the Swedes, I forget what the percentage is, but it's a really high percentage of folks will say, "Well, yeah, I'm Christian. I'm part of the Church of Sweden or whatever they call the Church of Sweden. I forget what it is, Lutheran Church." But that's just cultural because being Swedish means that I'm this.
Right.
The Scottish people wouldn't say that now. The majority of them. And what we learned while we were there is sometimes when we think of a term like post-Christian culture, one, that's a really scary kind of sounding phrase, like it almost apocalyptic, but it's not. It's when we think of that, when I thought of that when we moved there, I thought like everyone was completely against Christianity and everyone hated Jesus and the church and all of that. What we learned through different folks that were planting churches and just different venues like that was that the culture, by and large, they're not against Christianity. They know nothing about it. And so we realize how much, like culturally, there is Christianity still in America. There's concepts of right and wrong. There's concepts of sin and forgiveness and asking forgiveness and saying you're sorry that are actually not part of the fabric of their culture anymore. Wow. And so they're not against the gospel. They just don't know anything about it. So when you ask the average Scot, what do you think of God? Their answer is not, I hate him. Their answer is, I don't. Which is really kind of like, that's mind-blowing. So you begin the conversation really in a different place. And it takes a lot longer, if you will, for someone that's coming out of that background to come to faith. I think I heard that the average from like a first gospel conversation of like, let me tell you about God or Jesus, to where they come to repent and believe can take on average 8 years. Wow. Which is, so we're going to have the privilege of hearing Jeff Murray. Jeff's just a good lad. I think he listened to the podcast last week. He reached out. And so, Jeff, this is a shout out to you. We're looking forward to having Jeff here
second Sunday.
Second Sunday in November. Yeah, November.
Can't wait to hear the accent.
November the 10th. We might have to have subtitles for him. Like, I'm going to tell him, like, go full Fife. Like, just go full on. Jeff's a great, great young man. Really looking forward to him opening God's Word for us. And Jeff's in the middle of it. Like, Jeff joined a sports club to get to know people in the community where he is. He's hanging out with a lady downstairs that she's an older lady that lives right below him. He and his wife are just getting to know this older lady and hearing her story. And that her story is what I just said a minute ago. It's not like she's like, oh, I hate God. It's I don't really think about him. I don't really think about him anymore. And maybe we can do a podcast while Jeff's here too. That would be kind of fun.
It would be.
And just get some of that. And Jeff can be like, that story you told about the lady that lives downstairs, that was partially right, but you completely missed it. But where they are culturally is where the United States will be probably in the next 50 to 100 years. And so that we need to be learning from them as a church of how are you guys reaching, and we need to be helping them. And that's part of the vision. Like, how do we help folks like Jeff in these places where the church population is 1%, 2% of the population go to an evangelical church. And so how do we support them, but at the same time we learn from them for what's coming up a generation or two from now?
Yeah, just to jump in, it's just clicked, and it's very obvious, but you and I use the term the Big C church, right? We didn't come up with that term, but just when we mean by that is just the universal church, the people of God through the visible church around the world. And in supporting, thinking big picture, Vision 2050, one of our stated goals was to help see 25 international churches. Hopefully that's a minimum, but whatever that looks like, whatever God does. So supporting a Jeff Murray in what you just said actually is blessing us, both directly and indirectly, through what we learn, through our partnership, through seeing the gospel reach people that you and I will never, meet face to face.
Absolutely. When Victor Cruz was here, Victor, we support him. He's stationed in Mexico City, but helps train church planters for all over Mexico, Central, and South America. And he was here, and he starts talking about all this stuff, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Like that, I'm growing by listening to Victor talk about what it looks like to plant churches in a different part of the world, and so it's just a blessing. It blesses us, and it blesses them, and I hope that Jeff's able to articulate that as well. One of the things I love, Jeff, if you're listening, hey buddy. Two, Jeff reached out and said, we want to join you in your day of prayer. Could you send along the prayer points for October the 1st?
Oh, wow.
And so I'm blown away by that, that here's this little church in the Kingdom of Fife, and you can Google that if you don't know where the Kingdom of Fife is. I just love the fact that it's called a kingdom. It's like Seminole County, the Kingdom of Seminole. Like, how cool is that? Like, Kingdom of Fife. That's awesome. Yes. And Jeff's just planting a wee church in the Kingdom of Fife, doing the Lord's work, and just saying, hey, church in Orlando, we want to join you in praying for this. Like, that's Jeff's heart. Like, that's an awesome thing. And I'm really bad about saying sorry. Sorry, Jeff. How can we pray for you guys? What's going on? And that's what partnership's about. Amen. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for the church to meet Jeff, for our tens of listeners and the hundreds in our congregation to meet him and more like him, from all over the world, that we learn, and we're blessed, and we seek to bless them as well. So
absolutely. Well, let's stop it there for today. This has been fun. I feel like every time we're learning both what we're doing via
we're trying
communicating the podcast, but
I didn't pop as many peas this time, I don't think. No, Ryan says I didn't. And I just want to say a quick little thing. Like, if you're mowing the grass right now, don't forget the edging. The edging is very important. It makes a nice, clean cut look. And my neighbors do the edging, and it makes me sick because my grass is all over the place. And I'm jealous.
And I listen when I'm exercising.
Nice,
so if you're exercising, get five more reps.
Five
Come on,
more.
Finish,
wow.
push.
I was going to say hydrate.
Oh,
that was where I was going to go, was hydrate. But and if you're doing the dishes, thank you. Thanks for doing the dishes and working on that. So, I don't. Are we going to do this again next week, or are we going to take a week off, perhaps? And we'll see.
Yeah,
we're going to do this every week, or
we'll
not?
do a TBD.
Let's
I'm
do it.
down to do it every week.
Hey,
yeah, maybe we'll have a guest.
If all of our tens of listeners, if you guys want to, if you have questions for us that we can address on the podcast, just let us know. Reach out to Drew or myself, and we'll address it. Would love to.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, our YouTube page. Just search Willow Creek Church. You might type in the PCA just to be assured it's our church. So Willow Creek Church PCA. And thanks for listening.
Like and subscribe.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Oh,
I have no idea what that means, but like us and subscribe.
If you're still listening, if you like
They're
and
not
subscribe.
Listening. No one's listening.
Because I did this, and now what you'll get is every Monday morning, you'll get the sermon audio in this same podcast feed from Pastor Greg's sermons.
But you still need to attend worship.
Yes.
This is not a way not a way to get out of church. But if you're sick or on the road, there it is.
Beautiful. Well, we love you. We're thankful to serve you here at Willow Creek, and can't wait to see you soon. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.